No one saw this coming from the Rams. A surprising loss in free agency that has major implications heading into this season and why this is a problem for this upcoming season. All that and more on this episode of Rams Digest. And welcome back to another episode of Rams Digest. I am your host, Joshua Finehirsh. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 4,000 subscribers. We've recently gained a few. We've gained around 20. And right now we're at 3.17 thousand subscribers. So make sure to hit that button and hit that bell so you get notifications whenever Rams Digest posts on the daily. Now to our main story of the day. The Rams have a surprising loss in free agency. The Rams not known to take a lot of losses in the free agency / offseason period. But there is one that needs to be talked about today and why this is a huge problem heading into this season. Now, getting it started here, we have the Rams ended up losing Joe Noteboom in free agency to the Ravens today on a 3-year, $40 million contract. A nice payday there for Noteboom. He spent the first 7 years of his career all here after being drafted by the 3rd round. As you can see, the Ravens just signed him. This story is brought to us by our friends over at the Rams Wire. And Noteboom has been an essential lineman for this Rams team, as he has been a key depth piece at the tackle positions. He was actually the replacement for Andrew Whitworth. He trained under Andrew Whitworth for his first couple of years, and because of that, he played well enough in the time he played to gain a huge $40 million contract. Before we go any further, I just want to say congratulations to Joe Noteboom on an amazing Rams career, and congratulations on the payday. The money is deserved. I wish him nothing but success in Baltimore, except when they play us this upcoming season. And before we get on with the video, like this video for Joe Noteboom if you are a fan of his, as he has a lot of great moments for the Rams, the primary offensive tackle of the team. He's able to play both sides of the line there. And he took a pay cut to remain with the Rams last year, but sadly struggled with injuries last year and then again throughout the previous year as well. In 7 seasons with the Rams, he played 71 games and made 35 starts. Again, we're talking a long-time Ram here, someone who was an early draft pick of Sean McVay, and somebody who really knows the offensive system that the Rams like to use with Goff, and now especially with Stafford. This is someone that the Rams are losing who has a lot of snaps played with Matthew Stafford on the same snap count, on the same cadences. It's going to be very important for the Rams to replace that coming up here quite soon. And Noteboom originally joined the Rams as a 3rd-round pick out of TCU. TCU being known for the offensive side of the ball a lot more than the defensive side. Noteboom with an amazing Rams career. And now the Rams have to look to replace him, because on the O-line, the depth at the tackle positions, especially the right side, is not where the Rams want it to be heading into this upcoming season if they want to remain Super Bowl contenders. As we get a look at the depth chart right here, as you can see, the left tackles are pretty strong, with Alaric Jackson being re-signed by the Rams. He got a nice payday, which was well deserved. We noticed it when he missed the first 2 games of last year with the suspension, how much the Rams missed him, and it's great that he is back. And then AJ Arcuri is another really nice depth piece on the bench for the Rams. Center-wise, they signed Coleman Shelton in the offseason, which was a massive deal, because now Steve Avila gets to move back to his natural position of guard, and that gives us even more depth on the offensive line. And this also means Bo Limmer, who in the games he played, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I'm not as high on him as other people are, based on his play last year, and now he gets to learn under an experienced center. He was the center Shelton of the Rams Super Bowl team, and he has great chemistry with Stafford as well. And now we get over to right tackle, where we have a lot more questions about the depth for this Rams team here, where it's really Rob Havenstein who's had injury issues, and not really much else there. There is Warren McClendon Jr., the 5th-round pick of the Rams from a couple years ago, who we'll get into in a little bit. However, I believe that the Rams need to add more depth, especially to the right side, that right tackle position on the offensive line, because Havenstein has had injury issues. And now, before we get into that, we're so late in free agency at this point, where a lot of the great tackles who the Rams could have spent some more money on, like Alaric Jackson, which they did, are assigned already to these big term extensions on, contending teams. And now you're left with, some more role player tackles, if you will, which is okay. Because the Rams just need someone who's had experience, who can really adapt to any situation, any offensive line. It's someone who can learn the cadence, learn the snap counts, pretty quickly, and learn the blocking schemes as well quickly, so that they are able to really, really just fit in beautifully on the O-line in case another injury, sadly, does happen to Rob Havenstein, which has been happening the last couple of years. He is 32. Again, Warren McClendon, a bit younger, a fifth-round pick by the Rams a few years back in 2023. However, the Rams need to look to add some more depth. But looking at the tackle market alone, the main name that I've seen in the comments is Jedrick Wills, which I like Jedrick Wills. I think he can still have something to offer to an NFL team. However, he plays mostly on the left side. Actually, I was looking into his PFF grades, and he had 0 snaps on the right side of the line playing right tackle, which is not what the Rams need. Now, before we get to my take on who the Rams should add, I want you to leave a comment down below. Leave down below who you believe that the Rams need to sign to help fill the gap left by Joe Noteboom, and in order to help out Warren McClendon back there as well. Because with Havenstein's injury history, it is very important to make sure that there is enough offensive tackle depth on this roster. And now to my take on who the Rams should sign for the missing offensive tackle spot on the line. And that player is going to be David Quisenberry, actually, yes. David Quisenberry, the veteran, 34 years old. He is 6'5", 310 pounds. He plays on both sides of the line. Looking here, his overall grade at 58.4% is pretty average. His run blocking and pass blocking, 54.8, 57.9, 110 snaps played. But look at this, 0 penalties allowed. That is key for an offensive lineman to not get those penalties, not set your team back whatsoever. And he only allowed 1 sack as well, which is big because when we get to McClendon's page a bit later, you'll see what I mean on that. And these grades are brought to us by PFF as always. And for Quisenberry, a fun, not so fun fact about him, but fun now, is that he is a cancer survivor. So he has that warrior mentality to him already. Off the field, he won an award by the NFL and PFF for beating cancer. Like this video for David Quisenberry beating cancer. Amazing accomplishment. And because of that, I think he brings that mentality to this offensive line of I'm going to do anything it takes to win these blocks, anything it takes to protect my quarterback. And that's the type of energy that we want to see from an offensive lineman on any NFL team. And I think he'd be a great fit. He'd be a cheap contract as well, potentially a 1-year deal, because you look at what the Rams are going to do. If the Rams do need to trade for Jalen Ramsey, let's say the Dolphins don't cut him and that trade does come through, you already picked up so much more cap space as well. You lost cap space, you bring in more salary, and being able to add, a quick veteran plug-in player to the O-line like a David Quisenberry is super duper important. And when we compare him to Warren McClendon's PFF grades, his overall grade of 59.7, his pass grade is actually below average, 51.5. But look at the running grade, in the high 60s, above average right there. And look at the snap count for him as well. 331 snaps. That's more than the Rams would have wanted him to use last year because of Havenstein's injury. McClendon had to play more. Only 2 penalties, which is quite good. The penalties aren't the problem, but we get to the sacks down at the bottom right there for his season stats. 5 sacks given up. Now that's a lot for an offensive lineman to give up. Most, elite linemen, you see 1, you see 2. You don't see 5 right there, and that's a big problem. Especially on the passing plays, as we see his grade of 51 being a little bit below average. That is really something to keep an eye on if you're the Rams, because Stafford only getting older. You need to protect him. He's been taking a lot of hits lately that he doesn't need to take. McClendon, was on that side of the line who forgot to block Jalen Carter on that key 3rd down against the Eagles. So McClendon already coming into this year with a bit of, a rough ending for him last year. 5 sacks. And again, he can play both tackles as well, right and left. McClendon over 200 snaps on the right side. Quisenberry only 17, but then again, it's better than a Jedrick Wills that we mentioned earlier, who has 0. And if the Rams don't sign any depth pieces, and Havenstein ends up getting hurt, they are in a huge hole on offensive line, and they'll need to make a quick patch fix, potentially someone from the practice squad or an undrafted free agent that they've brought on, because I know they've brought on some undrafted free agents on that offensive line However, when you're a Super Bowl contending team like the Rams are, you don't want that as a third option. You want that as a fourth option. Your third offensive lineman should be somebody who's had NFL experience, who's played in the NFL, who can learn snap counts quickly, learn blocking schemes quickly. Just something that can really fit with the team easily. And an undrafted free agent, you never know. You wish them all the best, obviously. I want them to all succeed. But you just never know right there. And that is all for this episode of Rams Digest. Thank you so much for watching. And remember to comment down below. Who do you think the Rams could sign in free agency? I mentioned David Quisenberry if we're looking more so to convert somebody to the right side. Jedrick Wills works. But I want to know who else. Because a lot of the top of the top tackles are already signed and on these teams long term. And if you think the Rams could trade for somebody like we saw the Commanders make a surprise trade for Laremy Tunsil, let me know as well in the comments. I would love to see it. I always look at your comments, like the comments, and it means just so much to me and Josh and I, that you all care and that you comment because it shows that you're passionate. And passion is very important in sports. But that's all for this episode of Rams Digest. I've been your host, Joshua Finehirsh. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you soon for another episode of Rams Digest.